In our endless search for happiness, what if the real secret wasn't about finding more pleasure, but about getting really, really clear on the danger? Today, we're diving into this incredible concept from the ancient Pali texts called Adinava. It's just one word, but trust me, it might completely change how you look at, well, everything. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to break down what Adinava actually means. Then, we'll see how it applies to one of the biggest drivers in our lives, craving. After that, we'll look at how it shapes our beliefs and our actions. And finally, we'll get to the big reveal, how seeing danger is, believe it or not, the first step to real freedom.
All right, let's jump right in at the deep end. What exactly is this powerful idea?
Okay, so Adinava. The translations are words like danger, disadvantage, or peril, but it's so much more than that. The best way to think about it is like the hidden cost, the fine print that comes with every experience. This isn't about being a pessimist, it's about being a realist. It's a tool for seeing the entire picture, the good, the bad, and the ugly, before you dive in. Now, Adinava doesn't just hang out on its own. It's actually a pivotal step in this 5-part process for gaining insights. The texts say that to really understand anything, you have to see how it starts, how it ends, and you gotta be honest about the pleasure it gives you. That's the asada. But step 4? That's the turning point. That's when you see the Adinava, the hidden danger. Because it's only when you see the problem clearly that you can even start thinking about step 5, the escape. So how does this actually work in real life? Well, the texts give us the perfect, most universal example, turning the lens of Adinava onto the feeling of craving. The teaching here is just incredibly blunt and to the point. It's not saying there's no pleasure in the things we want. Of course there is. But the point is a practical one. If you put the brief pleasure on one side of the scale and all the suffering and danger on the other, which side is heavier? The text is pretty clear that it's not even a close call. And to really drive this home, the texts use these incredible metaphors. First up, chasing pleasure is compared to a starving dog just gnawing away at a bare, fleshless skeleton. Can you picture it? All that effort, all that desperate energy for something that has absolutely no substance and can never, ever satisfy its hunger. The next one is just as brilliant. Pleasure is like carrying a lit torch made of grass while walking against the wind. Yeah, for a second you get some light and warmth, but getting burned isn't just a possibility, it's pretty much a guarantee. The harm is baked right into the pleasure itself. This one shows the immediate peril so well. Chasing after these kinds of pleasures is like deciding to take a stroll through a pit of red-hot embers. The gratification and the pain aren't separate things. They're completely intertwined. And finally, the danger is compared to the head of a venomous snake. It might look interesting, maybe even beautiful from a distance, but it carries a hidden, lethal threat. One wrong move, and the consequences could be disastrous. And hey, it's not just about poetic similes. The texts map out the very real-world fallout. It all starts with craving. That craving leads to struggling just to get what you want. Then comes the fear of losing it, and this just spirals out of control into arguments with family, fights with friends, all the way up to wars between nations, crime, and punishment. It's an undeniable chain reaction, and it all kicks off from that one little seed of desire. But Adinava isn't just about the things we chase after physically. This lens can be turned inward, to look at the danger in the way we think, the ideas we cling to so tightly, and the actions that spring from them. And this gets us to a really crucial distinction: the person who doesn't see the danger versus the person who does. The one who is blind to the hidden costs, well, they get tangled up, attached, and become like an animal caught in a snare. But the person who sees the danger clearly, they can interact with the world, enjoy things, but without getting trapped. They always know there's a way out. The only thing separating the prisoner from the free being is just perception. The texts also lay out the Adinava of immoral actions like a trail of dominoes. It starts with really practical stuff. You lose money, people start talking, and your reputation takes a hit. Then that chips away at your confidence, so you feel ashamed. This inner chaos leads to a confused mind when it's time to die, which in turn is said to lead to a really rough future. You can see how each step is a direct result of the one before it. So this all leads us to the ultimate point. I know, constantly looking for danger sounds like a total downer, right? But in this way of thinking, it's the complete opposite.
It's the absolutely essential first move you have to make to find real, lasting freedom.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. This is the origin story of the Buddha's own search. He himself says his whole journey didn't start with some lofty spiritual goal. Nope. It started with a very practical, down-to-earth insight, fully understanding the nava, the inherent peril that's just woven into the fabric of life itself. So what was this universal danger he saw? It was in all the stuff we face, the things we usually try so hard not to think about. The simple fact that we're born, that we'll get old, that we'll get sick, that we'll die, and that we'll experience sorrow. It was only by looking straight at the disadvantage in these conditions that the search for an alternative, for an escape, became more than just a nice idea. It became an absolute necessity. And there it is. That's the core logic of this entire pass, laid out perfectly. You're not going to genuinely look for an exit if you don't first realize the room is on fire. Seeing the nava isn't about creating fear. It's the spark. It's the catalyst that ignites the whole search for freedom, for the escape route. So, at the end of the day, this ancient concept is so much more than a history lesson. It's a real, practical tool for self-awareness that you can use right now. It's an invitation to look at our own lives, our habits, our goals, our simple pleasures, and to ask, with real courage and honesty, okay, what's the gratification I'm getting here? And what's the hidden danger? The answer just might be the key that finally unlocks the cage.